participate in the lesson,
Yeah.
they seem to learn better than as you said,
When they're
chalk and
sitting
talk. When
passively,
exactly.
so you do a lot of dialogue, a lot of interchange, and get them involved a lot more.
Yes.
So that works for what grades? Does it work for the lower grades, the middle grades, or the upper grades you find more? Which grades you find it work best for?
Well, for me at the secondary school, the lower grades are more interested to get involved, but the higher grades they find that, oh, they're almost done, so they just get it over with.
Let's give us the notes and get it over with.
Exactly.
All right. Okay. Anybody else? What about those of you who teach at the primary level? Have you tried anything differently in your classes at any point in time that you find students were struggling? Or it could be one particular student or a group of students, and you found that your new approach worked, a different approach that you took worked. Grace, Robinan, Rushani, any of you?
Or honestly, I was in front, I come into the bedroom, so I missed the question.
Oh, you missed the question. I was asking.
Sorry, the same with me.
Yeah, I was asking if anybody tried, your students were struggling with a subject or a topic or something like that, and you try something different, you try a different approach, or you use different resources, and you found it worked better than what you were doing before, and you say, well, wow, okay, now I know what I can do to get this topic across or get them to understand this better.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
For example, teaching children fraction, because when I was in the classroom, I was mostly be a grade 5 or 6 and 6 teacher.
Right.
And for example, you're teaching children to find the whole, giving a fraction of it and stuff like that. But and they find that you're working with a fraction, but you don't give it like a representation. What I recognize is that when you could recognize this fraction with diagrams, they tend to understand it better.
Concrete, when you have something concrete, a concrete manipulative.
Yeah, once they could represent these fractions with a diagram, because they can see.
Yes.
They to me they understand that better.
Yes. Yes.
So.
All right. Thank you, Shani.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I had experience with that in terms of multiplication. Well, I teach in higher grade, grade 5, grade 6. So
yes.
Yeah, so different strategy we had to use to get them out, also as allow them to come up with a strategy.
Oh.
To understand the concept.
Yes.
Because remember, at our level there, we have to at least let them understand something to go into the exam. So if they got to keep working with our strategy, they would not get it always.
Yes.
So
that's letting them come up with their own construct. That's constructivism. They construct their own learning.
And that will help. Correct.
All right, good, very good, thank you.
In terms of my strategy is multiplication, where we have to use different method, and that's like divide them into the tens, or you multiply by the 100 alone, then the tens, and then add and so forth. Right. Yes. And that's my input, sir.
Okay. All right.
I can remember in 2020, the same time I think the pandemic started, I had a child in my class that any method you give to her, she would find another method that suits her. She'd come up with her own method.
Wow.
She was so good. Sometimes I was like, she would come to me, like really? I have to be collecting her book and
She has
sit in
a
her
math
book
brain,
and trying to
understand what she
follow her
did.
because yeah, she never take like your method. But what I would
Yeah.
try to do, especially when it comes to math, you don't teach children one method. You
Yes.
get at least 3 methods. And she would tell me like, okay, miss, you're gonna say complete by tomorrow, I bet I come with another method. And she would
Wow.
come with it. Yeah, she was challenged. You have to always be on the ball. Always, 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 always. For the
Excellent.
reason, oh my gosh.
Wow.
Yeah, she was good.
She was good. What her what kind of what her parents did? Is this something that she inherited from either parent? Do you know?
Well, I don't know. I think
Oh,
not to me, to me, she was born with it. She was just
yes,
a
yes,
gift,
yes.
like
Right,
it was good because our other siblings they don't work like her, but she was
She's
just
special.
good, especially with math,
Math.
especially with math.
Yeah, she had a math brain. Wow, fantastic.
No
Grace, you
matter
want to
what,
say something?
you
Yeah,
give
go
her
on.
3 methods, she come with a fourth one. You give her four
Wow.
methods, she come with a fifth one. She
Fifth one.
always challenging you.
You.
Sometimes when you collect her book to mark, you guys actually understand her method now. And it's like, wow.
Wow.
Yeah, she was
I
good.
hope that gift continues with her right up to university and we have another math brain encouragement.
Yeah.
Yes. Grace, you
She's
wanted to
good.
say something just now?
Yes, sir. As well, while I was listening to Miss Robinan, I could remember before the strike, we had to do fractions. And I teach the babies. So in order for them to understand directly that fractions are equal part of a whole, the word equal, we decided we were going to have a fraction party. So each child had to bring a cake, a little cupcake,
Right, yes.
fruit, different things.
Yes.
And then we allow them to cut it in half, they half or whatever. And for those who didn't cut it in half, you say, well, which one now would you want? Because for those who didn't cut it directly, so just so that they could understand that it's an equal part. Because if you cut it and you get a big piece and a small piece, and which piece so just so that they could understand the concept that the fraction is an equal part of a whole. That's just something that came to mind
And they
while
did it, and they
listening
did
to
it,
her.
and they understood it.
Yes, sir, they were able to understand because if I get a cupcake and we supposed to cut it in half and you cut and then I get a bigger piece, I will want the bigger piece. So they would understand now that in order to get a fraction, you got to be equal.
Equal, yes.
That's just something that came to mind
Okay,
while I was
very good.
listening to her.
A fraction party, very, very innovative, very creative. All right. Yeah, how can I become an intentional teacher? Of course, you have a degree to do or whatever certification. Certification is important. Different states and different countries have different levels of certification. The US has the Interstate Assessment and Support Consortium that has different standards, and the standards will include understanding learning and development, understanding that all students are different, so you have to have diversities in cultures and communities, so your approaches should be different. Understanding the importance of the learning environment according to what you want to teach, how you set up your classrooms. You might take them outside for some fresh air, children love to go outside, take them outside to read, to do poetry if the weather allows it. How you organize the class, how you beautify the classroom and that sort of thing could lead to motivation, enhancement of learning. Content knowledge, the teachers must enhance their content knowledge of the different subject areas. And so you know how to approach, so you know if you're approaching math, you're approaching language, if you're approaching science, if you're approaching reading, if you're approaching information technology or social studies, right? So content knowledge is important. Fifth standard, application of content. How do you apply that knowledge? How do you use critical thinking to apply knowledge? How do you use collaborative problem solving to deal with authentic local or global issues? What are some issues that you face in Ghana that you begin to have them to begin to think about different little issues, simple issues that you can apply what they're learning towards? Sixth standard is assessment. The assessment must be valid, it must be fair, it must be reliable, it must be authentic assessment. The more authentic the assessment is, the better learning will take place. Planning for instruction is another standard. You don't just go in the classroom and teach, but you must plan. You have a scheme of work, you notes of lessons. Yes, you plan for your term, you plan for the week, you plan for the day. You plan for each lesson, your lesson plans, and that's good. What are the requirements? So, does each school require you to have lesson plans, schemes of work? What is the requirements for the head teacher have to see it and sign it, or principal has to see it and sign it? Or how does the planning go in Guyana? What are the requirements for each term or each month or each week, or how does it work?
Well, I know lesson plans are supposed to be prepared on a daily basis, but however, it's not so in every case.
Not
Um,
enforced.
yes. I know for sure, I'm not that much in the classroom, but I do know some of what goes on. I know that there is a termly scheme that the deputy usually signs off. Um, but then again, teachers usually just change the date on the on the work
They don't
and
write
just submit the
it.
same thing every term.
Every term, right, right, right.
Yes. Um, and the heads of department usually checks off the teachers that are under his or her department to ensure all is well. But yes, there is a pattern that follows.
Expectation.
Yes.
Right. Anybody else? Anybody else can vouch for Sunday yourself? Tell me how it is in your neck of the woods. All right, nobody want to share. Okay. So we have instructional strategies. So how are you going to go about teaching? Is it going to be a synchronous class? Is it an online class? Is it a face-to-face class? Is it a blended learning class? Professional learning and ethical practice. So you keep up with your training, with your upgrading and upskilling yourself and so on. Is professional learning and ethical practice. Leadership and collaboration, leaning out and collaborating with others, learning from others, sharing information with others, sharing strategies and so on. So beyond certification, being an intentional teacher, someone who seeks mentors, seeks professional development, they talking, teaching, they sharing, they commiserating, they reading professional articles, joining professional associations. Yeah, so that's the end of our first lecture there. As I said, I will post those lectures online. You have a copy of, you have access to a copy of the slides. I'm trying to keep the exams to the slides and the chapters. All right, so we want to take a 10-minute break. It's now 6:20, and we'll come back in at 6:30. 12 minutes, 6:32, and we'll continue with the second lecture. The second lecture will be on cognitive development. It's up on the screen. Cognitive development, so we'll start that in 12 minutes time. All right, everyone? Let's take a
Sir,
break.
are you gonna create the WhatsApp group or let one of us take the initiative
Yeah,
to do so?
yes, please. Let me put my number in it. I'll put my number in the chat.
All right, no problem.
All right, so we take a break. Am I still sharing? Hello, am I still sharing? You're still seeing my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, right. So we're going into cognitive development. So when we talk about cognitive development, we want to examine how students cognitive development will be based on their brain changes, brain maturation, how their brain matures over time, and based on their interaction with the environment in home, in school, and otherwise, the experiences that they're exposed to, those types of experiences would enhance their cognitive development. It's how they develop their thinking skills, their thinking of the ability to process information, their ability to problem solve, their ability to use language, develop literacy, and those kinds of things. So when we talk about cognitive development, we're looking at how children develop cognitively. We would look mainly at Piaget's view and Vygotsky, and also at how language and literacy develops. The term development refers to how people grow or they adapt and change over a course of time. And it also includes personality development, socio-emotional development, how they deal with social and emotional issues. And of course, cognitive development deals with how they think and how they process information. Somebody was sharing, I think Grace was sharing how she had the fraction party, and you'll find that young children between 3 and 5, if you take a cake or a small pie or something like that, and you cut it up and you give one person 3 small pieces, and you give another person 2 small pieces, 2 big pieces, they would think that the person who got three small pieces, no matter how small they are, they will feel that the person who got 3 pieces got more than the person who got the 2 pieces, because the most obvious thing for them is the number of pieces. So 3 pieces are more than 2 pieces. So it doesn't matter if the 2 pieces are much bigger. One of the pieces could be bigger than the 3 small pieces. That's how they think. So, but as they mature, they'll be able to recognize size as the volume or the size of a piece as more important than the number of pieces, right? So these are some changes in cognition in terms of how they process information as that happens as they get older. And of course, language develops slowly over time and imperceptibly. So they begin with cooing and babbling and one-word utterances, then two-word sentences, and they make little phrases, and eventually they speak whole sentences, and languages takes off from 2 years on and upward. Which aspects of development are important for teachers to know? That one, children are not miniature adults, so don't expect children to behave like adults or reason like adults. Children are not children. Children are not miniature adults. They are children, so they will think like a child, they will act like a child, they will behave like a child, they will see things as a child. So they think differently and they see the world differently than adults do. Okay? So one of the first requirements of effective teaching is for you to understand how the students think and how they view the world, how they see the world as differently. Okay, effective teachers must take into account the age of the child, the child's age, and the stage of development. Okay, so the things that you'll be able to do with, like Sandy was talking about, what she was able to do, the activity she's able to do at the lower secondary level, she's not able to do with those who are mature. The mature ones just want to get it done and over. They don't want too much discussion. They just want the notes and what is information in order to prepare for the exam. So age and stage are important in terms of development when you're planning your teaching and you're planning how to approach your lessons. Some issues that relate to development could be like nature versus nurture, continuous versus discontinuous theories. So when we talk about nature, we're talking about the impact of what children would have inherited. And I was asking, I think this Robinan was sharing, it's Robinan or Roshani was sharing about the child who was exceptional in math. And I was asking her what her parents did. And she was saying she wasn't sure, but she thinks that she was just gifted. So when we talk about nature, we are talking about abilities that children or a child is born with, that they have naturally inherited from their parents or from somebody in their ancestry. And when we talk about nurture, we are talking about the impact of the environment. So nature versus nurture. So some people say that once you're born with it, if you're not born with it, you don't have it. And some people say you don't have to be born with it. Once you are skilled or trained or groomed, or you can develop different skills. So there's the nature versus nature controversy in terms of which one impacts upon the development more. Is it what you're born with or the environment that you grow up in? And then whether environment proceeds along continuous or discontinuous theories. So, as we said, nature deals with birth, hereditary, and biological factors. But is also affected by experience and environmental factors. That's in nature. And you. And this one here is the nature, N-E. So what do you think? So what do you think personally about your own abilities? Do you think your abilities are the abilities that you were born with, or do you think your abilities are your abilities that you learned after you were born because of the environment that you're in, because of the schooling that you got, because of the courses that you did? Which one do you think shapes or makes you who you are at the present time in terms of your most outstanding abilities? Let's go to Roshani first.
I go with the environment.
Yeah.
And I was born with that, yes.
Huh?
Yes, sir.
The environment. So the environment is not what you're born with. The environment is what shaped you as you grow up. Yeah. Nature is what you're born with, what you inherit from your parents, and the skills or abilities you inherit from your parents. So your father's a teacher, your mother's a teacher, and you just have a natural ability to teach. That's nature. But if none of your parents were teachers, or and you just...
None of them are teachers, sir.
Right. So it's based on your schooling and based on your environment that you're exposed to. You think you develop your teaching skills. All right. Thank you very much. Robinan?
Or it could be both. It would, for me, it would be both.
Which one you'll give? Which one you'll tip the scale? Is exact 50-50?
Because nature is based on your environment, what you were taught. Or so
no.
What?
Nature is what you're born with, your biological. Nurture is what is the environment that you grow up in. Don't mix them up. Yes.
Okay.
You see it on the screen there?
Something about nurture based on your environment. You're always encouraged to well, education is the best way forward, and you can take you to poverty.
As nurture,
right? Can give you a better life and all these kind of things. Then you have the
nature hereditary. What you inherit from your parents.
Yeah, because my grandfather was a head teacher, was a teacher.
Ah, yes.
So, and I have my aunt a teacher. You understand, sir?
Right, so you have in the family there, something going on in the family there.
Then I have my brother. After me, he's a teacher also. So
yes, so something with the genetics there, right? Hereditary.
Yeah, something with the genetics. Yeah.
So I can understand.
But I think sometimes too, it could be motivational too. It not gonna be the nurture part. Yes. You're motivated to do a few things.
Yes.
Yeah, motivated.
All right. Okay, Roshani is the first teacher in her family. Okay, Roshani. Thanks. Sandia?
For me, sir, it's both because my family is they're academics.
Okay.
And also there's nurture because there are a lot of people around me who play a major part influencing me
go
to
in this
also
direction?
strive in my education. So it's both.
Okay, great. But which one you'll tip the scale? Which one you'll give? If you have 51-49, which one you'll give 51?
Definitely nurture.
Nurture. Okay, all right. Grace? Grace, you there? Yeah, you Grace, if you unmute your mic. Yeah, not sure what's happening with Grace there. So let's move on. All right. And then it could be based on one of the two
Sorry,
theories.
sorry, I move. You were
Right.
speaking to me?
Yes, I was asking you which one you think. Is it nature or nurture for you in terms of your abilities? Is it nature in terms of what you would have inherited from your parents, or is it nurture, the environment that you grew up in that determine your skills and your abilities? Is she saying environment?
So I think both.
Both? Which one more than the
So
other?
I said both are nature and nurture. I come from a family of teachers. My
Okay.
aunts, my cousins, they're all teachers.
Right.
So I think that played a part.
Yes. So that's what
in
that
me
so
becoming a teacher.
right. So you have some kind of genetics in the family system there, in the family inheritance, something you would have inherited biologically, but also the environment as well, because the majority of a lot of teachers are around you.
Yes, sir. The environment as well.
Okay, right. Thanks a lot. And another, so that's nature nurture debate in psychology, educational psychology. And there's also the debate of continuous or discontinuous theories. A second view, notion of how does change occur? Is change continuous? So you have continuous theories of development that would make an assumption that development occurs in a smooth progression in terms of skills and development that are provided by the caregiver and the environment. And then the discontinuous theory is this one. This one says that development occurs more because of inborn factors, and those inborn factors rather than the environment influences change, so that a baby in the womb is a baby in the womb. That's totally different from an infant. That's totally different from a toddler. That's totally different from an infant. That's totally different from somebody in in childhood years. Totally different from a teenager, young adult, middle adult, and so on. So the discontinuous theory suggests that there are inborn maturity factors that determine that your changes over time, changes in how you feel, how you think, how you process information, how you interact with others, how you deal with the world, and so on. Whereas the theory of continuous development says, no, it's just a normal human being that goes through a series of smooth changes, okay, based on the environmental experiences, okay? But you can see clearly that each stage of development is different in terms of the discontinuous. So when we say discontinuous, that means each stage, it doesn't continue smoothly from one stage. Is not an infant just developing. It is different stages of human development that can be broken out and separated. Okay, so that's another debate in psychology, in human development. So in terms of cognitive development now, we are looking at adaptive changes that occur within the individual's mental processes, because cognitive development, the mental and thinking processes, and their cognitive functioning as they mature and they gain varied experiences. And this is very important on the brain structure, function, and maturation. So the brain has different areas and different sections develop at different times. As a matter of fact, in terms of the brain development, the back parts of the brain develop before the front parts of the brain. So it is a posterior to anterior hypothesis of development. The back of the brain develops before the front of the brain. So the back parts of the brain is more where you have the more instinctive and reflexive actions and activities and so on. And the front part of the brain is where you do more thinking and more reasoning and more planning and more assessment and evaluation of situations and circumstances. So you'd see why the back part of the brain, this area here will develop before this area here. The frontal lobe where it's thinking and processing of information. So that is why you don't see a child is not a miniature adult, because not until in the middle 20s that the brain starts to settle down and that people can really make high quality decisions. That's why when you have teenagers, if teenagers are involved in crime and criminality, they don't charge them and they don't process them. Usually don't charge and process them as an adult, because their brain development has not yet reached that stage of maturity. And so they think, they act, they behave differently at each stage, from infancy to toddlerhood to early childhood to middle to late childhood to teenage years to middle teens, late teens, early adulthood, and so on. Okay? The brain has about 86 billion neurons, and most of these neurons are interconnected, and each neuron has a cell body or axon or dendrite, and they function. Messages go in through the dendrites and are conducted along the axon, which is the cell body, and then it passes to another neuron via a synapse. When individuals mature, different parts of the brain become more myelinated, and some of the synapses are pruned so that the brain would work more efficiently. So if you don't use it, you lose it. And there's the anterior to posterior hypothesis that we were speaking about. Okay. Anterior to posterior. Anterior being the back and posterior being the front. So let me just switch my diagram there wrong. Anterior to posterior. The back of the brain develops before the front of the brain. Okay. And of course, the experiences, the quality of one's experiences. So some children, you find that they come from families where they read, where they're exposed to education, they're exposed to books. They have a high and a rich, a print-rich environment, or an environment that stimulates them and helps them to play games, they play, they are read to, they travel, and so they have a more rich life experience, and they learn faster and they grow and develop faster than children who don't have those experiences. So there are some theories of cognitive development. Jean Piaget's theory of cognitive or intellectual development focuses on schema and how we organize and experience the world. And Vygotsky looks at the socio-cultural development. Building on Piaget's theory, he took it a step further. So Piaget focused on the equilibrium, disequilibrium, and equilibrium cycle. So Piaget's view is that once we know and understand something, we are in a state of equilibrium. Once we are exposed to something new or something that we don't know, it throws us in a state of disequilibrium or mental imbalance, and we're trying to figure out what it means. And as we understand what it means, we get back into equilibrium, right? So in general, cognitive development is a more sophisticated and complex knowledge of the world, understanding of the world. According to Piaget, development is a qualitative advancement, not just quantitative, but qualitative advancement, where you move from simple cognitive processes to higher degrees of more complex cognitive processes, the equilibrium to disequilibrium cycle. So if a child, let's go further, right? So equilibrium, of course, is the state of balance, as I said, where we can fit new experiences into existing schemes. A scheme is any meaningful mental representation that you have. So for example, children, if a child is exposed to oranges as the first fruits that they're exposed to, when they see other fruits, a young child, they normally will call them an orange too. Every wrong fruit they look at is called them an orange. And then, so the parent might say, no, that is not an orange, that's a critical, or that's a grapefruit, or some other fruit, or it might be an apple, it might be a pear, it might be a pomsicle. So not every wrong fruit they begin to understand is an orange. So the schema for orange, so when they see something that they think is an orange, and say, no, that's not an orange, they go into disequilibrium until they understand, until you teach them, okay, well, this is not an orange, this is that, another name for another food. So we are driven to equilibrium, which is through organization, how we organize our schemes. We try to make sense of what we experience, and we create schemes or we might create a new scheme to fit the new experience into, if it cannot fit into an existing scheme. That is the process called adaptation. Okay, so you have equilibrium. That's when you understand. You have a new idea or experience that you never experienced before, and that causes disequilibrium. This is called chaos question, so on. And so sometimes you might be able to assimilate it. You put it into a subcategory of an existing scheme, or you would have to accommodate it, which is create a new category. So you might say, okay, so you might see different types of oranges, and you assimilate it into the scheme for oranges. But if it is not an orange, it's a grapefruit or Portugal or pomsite or an apple, you'll have to create a new category, and that is called accommodation. And once a new category is created, then new equilibrium has been established. Okay, so that is how Piaget theorizes or posits that we learn. That's how we grow. That's how our schemas expand. That's how our knowledge base and develops, so to speak, and we learn more as we progress through life. So adaptation results from accommodation or assimilation, which are mutual and sometimes reciprocal. All right. Accommodation is when you create a new scheme or mental categorization or classification. Assimilation is where it's fitting an experience into an existing scheme. When they work singly or complementary, they lead to adaptation and cognitive development advances. Okay. So you have assimilation or accommodation, the old experience, the new experience goes to disequilibrium, you accommodate or you assimilate, and then equilibrium occurs. So this diagram captures it nicely. Okay, so let's go further in understanding. What is an electric bicycle? So these are some questions I want you to answer. What is an electric bicycle? Have you ever seen one or heard about one?
So an electric bicycle will be a bicycle that works with a battery?
Yes, that's correct.
Not
a motorbike, eh?
No.
Right, so you're right. So electric bicycle is a bicycle powered by electricity of one form or the other, right? What is a unicycle?
A 3-wheel bicycle.
Uni.
It has one wheel.
One wheel, sorry.
Yes, one wheel, like what they use in the circus. It's a one-wheel cycle, right? What is a trike?
3 wheels.
A 3-wheel what?
Well, you said try. So it's 3. Try what?
No, it's a
Try
trike. What is a trike?
A trike?
Yeah.
Like TRIKE?
Yeah, it's on the screen, yeah. What do you think it is? Right, okay, I'll tell you. A trike is a 3-wheel motorbike. There's one on the screen now. You see it?
Yes,
Everybody,
sir.
right, so that's a trike, right? So if we go back, when I asked what is an electric bicycle, people knew what that is. You did not have disequilibrium. Unicycle, you know what that is, you didn't have a disequilibrium. When you heard trike, you see how disequilibrium occurs? Because you don't have anything in your schema, which your mental representation of bicycles called a trike. You know about a tricycle, which is a 3-wheel bicycle that kids use with the training wheels. But a trike, none of you have ever heard of a trike before, right or wrong?
Correct, sir.
Right. So that's why that's why nobody could answer, because you're in this equilibrium trying to figure out, you know, it's something with true wheels, but how is the true wheels organized? So you go from this equilibrium. When you see the picture now, you say, well, okay, that's a three-wheel motorbike. So you're going back to equilibrium now. Do we understand the process?
Yes, sir.
Right. So you develop. So what has developed? What are your understanding of motorbikes has grown. It has developed. It has gone further besides what you know. Okay, some delicious fruit. What fruit is that you see on your screen?
Mango.
Right, mango. What's that?
Orange.
Right, good. What do you have there?
That's a variety. We have
Right,
mango.
so nobody is in this equilibrium, right? We are acquainted with all those fruits that you're seeing there. Yes?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. What about these fruits? Anybody knows what this fruit is?
Sorry.
No? What about this? Anybody knows what that fruit is? No? Right. So this is a picture of the fruit. Has anyone ever seen that fruit? That's not a tomato, eh? It's a very sweet fruit, and you eat from the skin right down to inside. You eat everything. Sometimes they have seeds, but sometimes they don't have seeds. Sometimes they have seeds, they have black seeds in there. Sometimes they don't. And it's a very sweet fruit when it is ripe. Anyone has ever seen this fruit? Persimmon? One?
No, sir.
No. Right? Feijoa. What does it look like?
It looks like guava.
Yes, it looks like guava, but it isn't. It's really, really a nice fruit. Jelly-like. There's a jelly-like substance inside here. It's a nice sweet jelly. It's similar to a consistency like guava, but it's not guava. It looks like guava. And it grows in temperate countries like New Zealand. Right? So now you've moved from, when I asked you this, that's in this equilibrium, but now if you see these fruits, you're back to equilibrium, you understand and you know them. Right? So then Piaget, so that's how Piaget speaks about assimilation and accommodation. Assimilation is when you encounter something new, but you put it in a scheme that already exists. And accommodation is when you create a whole new category. So persimmon is a whole new category, feijoa is a whole new category of fruit by themselves, as well as the tribe. So Piaget looks at development as a discontinuous process where you have distinct stages that occur. So from birth to 2 is the sensory motor stage, from 2 to 7 is the pre-operational stage, from 7 to 11 is the concrete operational stage as the primary school years, and from 11 to 15 into adult is the formal operational stage. That's how Piaget speaks about cognitive development. So from birth to 2 is called sensory motor because the individual understands everything through his senses and through touch motor, through movement and touch. So they learn about the environment by tasting, touching, grasping, holding, hearing, seeing. So all their senses are involved in learning from birth to 2. Right? So they learn about colors, they learn about taste, they learn, and that's why sometimes they put everything in their mouth because that's their source of learning, source of feeding and so on, as they get older and as they mature. Then from 2 to 7, that's like the early childhood years, infancy to early childhood. This stage is called pre-operation because it is pre, because it is just before they learn the operations of mathematics and so on in secondary school in a formal way. So the pre-operational stage is when they are able to perform, the stage just before they're able to perform those mental operations like addition and subtraction. So this is preparation for school, pre-operational stage. According to Piaget, children's literal and concrete perceptions dominate this stage. They learn concepts of numbers and they overgeneralize in the use of language. Sometimes so they will see a car and every vehicle on the road is a car. They call a truck a car, a bike a car, pick up a car, everything will be a car. And then you will correct them, say, no, that's not a car, that's a truck, that's a pickup, that's a motorbike, that's a bus, etc., etc. So they overgeneralize and how they use their language. How should we facilitate cognitive development during the stages? Is what the teacher would have to focus on. Then the concrete operational stage, as the primary school years, they focus on everything that is literal or concrete. That is why somebody was saying is when they use the diagrams, they're better able to understand fractions because they can actually see the diagrams more literally than try to keep a concept, an abstract concept of a fraction in their head. So the concrete operational stage, they function best when things are concretized before them, when things are literal before them and tangible or real objects, right? And they don't do very well with abstract thought processes. That comes at the next stage, which would be the formal operational stage, where they move from concrete thinking to more abstract thinking. They can reason about hypothetical situations and circumstances. They're very systematic and organized in their reasoning and can argue well as teenage years. So you see that there's a clear distinction in how the thought processes change over time in this Piaget's theory of cognitive development. Yeah, any questions? Some of the characteristics of formal operational thinkers: they're very egocentric, they focus on themselves, they think that everybody is looking at them if they walk in a room. That's how they process information. They think that they're interested and they're important and they're special and unique. And that is called personal fable. They're also prone to risk taking because they process a lot of information through their emotions rather than rationalization, because the back of the brain develops before the front of the brain. The area, the amygdala, is the center of the brain that will develop before the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for decision making. Okay, and they think they're unique, and they think that they are special, and so that other people will take chances and risks, and nothing will happen to them, and things will happen to them. But then you say, why would you take the same risk as somebody? They think they are invincible. They think nothing will happen to them. They have this ideal view of life and the world. So some key concepts in Piaget's cognitive development: one is conservation, and that's the ability to recognize that the quantity or the amount remains the same regardless of the new shape or the number of parts into which it has been divided. So there's a basic conservation test where you show the child these two beakers and you say, you ask, is the fluid in these two beakers the same? And they say, yes, it's the same level, same height. And then you show them and you pour one into the other, into a taller, more standard beaker. And they would say, this one has more. Why do you think they would say C has more? And they watch you pour it straight over from B to C. Why do they think this one has more? Why would they think this one has? Anybody? Why do you think a child would think that this C has more because it is poured from B to C?
Because the C is taller than the
Yes,
rest.
right? Because C is taller, and they're looking at the height, looking that is taller than this, but they're not able to do transformation well, which is the ability to mentally record the process of moving from one state to the other. They can't hold that amount in short-term memory, so they're not doing transformation well. Nor do they do reversibility well at that early stage, right? And so this here diagram points, they watch you through it. But as the child gets older, they say, no, it's the same amount. It's just that because if you throw it back, because they do reversibility well, if you throw it back, then you will see it is the same amount. So their thoughts tend to be egocentric, and they focus, they believe that the world revolves around them, and whatever they see, they think that has the same perception that other persons would hold. So, for example, if you're talking to a young child, 3 or 4 years on the phone, and he says, "Your mommy dear," the child might do this. You're talking to them on the phone, and the child might do this. Because they know that they're shaking their head and saying yes. They believe that you, even though you're not there, you're talking to them on the phone, you are seeing that they're saying yes because they're seeing that they're saying yes, right? Some other concepts are classification. As they develop, they have the ability to classify items according to groups. So they put all the red together, all the yellow, all the green together, all the different shapes together, or they might be able to seriate, which is the rank according to decreasing or increasing length, mass, or volume. Or they're able to do transitivity as they get older in the concrete operational stage. They're able to do transitivity to be able to say how one factor is related to another factor. For example, if you ask them something like, John has some money, but Peter has more money than John, but James has more money than Peter. Who has the most money? They're able to do transitivity and show the relationship between two factors that are unrelated based on one factor. And in that case, they're able to say, well, James has the most money because Peter has more than John and James has more than Peter. Okay, so that's transitivity. That's one example of transitivity. And you could also, and that'll help them to understand a family tree and the relationship among factors in 2 or 3 generations. You might have grandparents, you might have parents, and you have children, and you'll be able to see uncle and cousins. You will see grandfather, grandmother, grandson, granddaughter, and different roles that persons will have in the family tree. So teachers can represent abstract concepts and principles with concrete as applying Piaget's principles. They can do anything that is abstract, let them have concrete examples and manipulatives. Assist students in linking the concrete with the abstract, allow students to verbalize their understanding as they talk to one another. Sandia brought that out. Order learning experience such a way that the earlier experiences are foundation for the later experiences. And somebody spoke about when they were teaching and they realized children had gaps, they had to go back. And, of course, every theory has its criticisms, and some say that younger children do have been seen to do simpler tasks of concentration. We overestimated the ability of older learners at the formal operational level. Conservation of mass precedes conservation of volume. Understanding it too is not automatic, but can be simultaneous. So there are some criticisms of Piaget. But Vygotsky, on the other hand, focus more on the social interaction and language development in terms of cognitive development. His view is that cognitive development occurs when one person interacts with the other, one knowledgeable person interacts and teaches through dialogue and through discourse, through cultural exchange, cultural knowledge, and language shares learning with another person. So he focuses on social interaction and the zone of functional development. All right. So intellectual, Vygotsky has 2 main ideas. Intellectual development can be understood in terms of historical and cultural context of children experience. And second, development depends on design systems that occurs in the culture to create how people think, how they communicate, and how they solve problems. Development, cultural development, cognitive development is culture specific. right? You also emphasize information from more knowledgeable others and deliberate teaching, and development occurs when the child begins to think and solve problems with the help of others or an ability to self-regulate. Okay? First step in self-regulation is learning that actions and songs have meaning. So it begins at the very basic level. And he emphasizes private speech, where children will speak to themselves in their head when they try to solve problems. He also emphasizes the ZPD, or the zone of proximal development, where you're learning, if you're going to learn 3x2 multiplication, you have to learn 1x1 and 2x2 first. And once you learn the 2x2, the step before, then you're in the zone to be assisted by a more knowledgeable person to move on to the next stage. All right. Focus on mediation, the process of older children and adults, helping or explaining or modeling or breaking down complex knowledge. Also scaffolding, which is providing the assistance by more competent peers or adults, and cooperative learning, where the children learn together as a group in terms of social interaction. All right, so here you have an example of a parent teaching a child what a referendum is. The father says democracy is an interesting process where politicians are chosen to run a country. The child says, okay. And the father says sometimes there's a major issue and therefore the government has to call a referendum. And give the example of sentencing immigrants, whether they should accept a new constitution. And it was rejected. 29,000 persons voted against it, and 20,000 persons voted for it. And the child said, what is it called that? He said, a referendum. And so the child learned what a referendum is through social dialogue, through that social interaction with the father, when a more knowledgeable person taught her the concept with an example of referendum. The role of language and cognitive development. Language plays an important role. All learners learn to access knowledge through the use of language, and language is considered to be cognitive tools, where you have the words, the concepts or ideas, aiding understanding the world, and solving problems in it. So you have math operations, you have computer language, you have all different types of language, learning for different subject areas. It's also a means of regulating and reflecting in one's thoughts and processes. The role of culture. So as I said, Vygotsky emphasized the role of culture as a cognitive toolkit, where they learn different forms of the language in their development. So different things mean, so right there in Guyana, you might learn certain terms might mean one thing in the city and certain terms might mean something else. I have a friend who is Guyanese and he tells me about different terms. And you know, there's always a running joke where between Guyanese and Trinidadians, whether it is chicken curry or curry chicken. You all know about that, right? Then Guyanese say, Guyanese say chicken curry. And we like, what is chicken curry? Is curry chicken? You curry the chicken? The Guyanese say, no. It's chicken curry. Oh, they all gone silent, so you all know what I'm talking about?
Yes, sir.
Well, it's a debate I don't really want to get myself involved in, because it is the same thing. Chicken curry, curry chicken is the same thing.
Is it?
It's the same thing. You curry the chicken, you chicken the curry. I don't know.
You chicken the curry? You go chicken the curry?
Whatever you do to the chicken and the curry, the end result is the same.
All right. So which one it is? If you go to the thing, what you ask for? If you go make some curry chicken, boy. What you say? What will you say, Robin? Will you say you're going to make a chicken curry, or you're going to make a curry chicken?
I was curry chicken.
Get you there?
I was a curry chicken. Everybody that's what I'm going to cook. I'm cooking curry chicken.
You wouldn't say you're going to make a chicken curry.
You're cooking curry chicken, but you're serving chicken curry.
Oh! Oh gosh. Shani, I find you real quiet on this one.
Sorry, I'm here listening. I don't want to get
You're making curry chicken and you're serving chicken curry. A good one, Sandy. A good one. Right. So again, language plays that kind of critical role. And as I explained to you, the zone of proximal development is understanding where the child is at. And the zone of proximal development is the area the child is at where they can move to the next stage with help from an adult. They can't move to the next stage on their own. And it's not too far away, but they need the assistance of an adult to move with that. But of course, scaffolding, I take different forms, which is just the support that you give them, whether you're modeling, you give an example, you're thinking aloud, you're questioning, you're adapting instructional material using prompts and cues. Just like how scaffold will support a building for the workers on a building to get the different things up. The scaffolding and learning is not doing the work for them, but giving them the required systems so they can complete the work independently. So that's important. Scaffolding helps students to complete the work independently. It's not giving them the work or doing it for them. Okay. And verbal thought process, guided practice, mnemonic charts, and so on. So Vygotsky's theory applied to teaching use real-world unauthentic activities, use scaffolding, structure instruction to include student interaction. So these are some ways that you could apply Vygotsky to the classroom. Linguistic development and language acquisition. Humans have an innate ability to develop language, and given the importance of language, communication is a total computer. How do we acquire language? And how can language be best facilitated and enhanced? So we have sequence of accomplishments is similar for all children. They have oral language first, then they have reading, then you have emergent literacy, preschool knowledge and skills in reading, and then you have writing. So as the order that we develop language and linguistic competence. How do language and literacy develop in the elementary and secondary school years? Language and literacy develops at a rapid rate, but there's an explosion of language ability. Researchers estimate that the average student adds at least 3,000 words each year to his or her vocabulary. The emphasis in early elementary grades is in decoding and fluency. When they reach the second grade onwards, they begin to be able to predict, to review, to summarize, to generate their own questions. And direct teaching, these strategies help students to improve comprehension ability. From theory into practice, these are how you enhance students' vocabulary and develop their reading skills. Get them excited about words, encourage them to read, teach selected words both frequently and broadly used, give students the opportunity to use new vocabulary words in their own right in conversation and language, use cooperative learning methods where students can have regular opportunities to study and to use their new vocabulary. So there are different strategies and stuff. We can apply the theory and bring it to the practice to enhance the vocabulary and the reading and competence and comprehension abilities of their students. And there must be a deliberate or intentional thing to enhance that, to get them excited about words, pulling out new words players on the board, have them to use words, have them to play with words, with games, learn their spelling, develop vocabulary, write vocabulary books, make little dictionaries, and then to change, make games and play games with each other and so on. And that can enhance the overall well, but this is just additional information that we could have